Yo, what's good? Big Z here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make this track. So it's one of Don Diablo's biggest tracks called Momentum, and I'm going to get into the details and show you guys little tips and tricks he uses to get that signature Don Diablo sound. Let's start off with the main synth wobble here. So most Don Diablo songs, he just plays straight chords and then modulates the chords with an LFO. So how you achieve that signature Don Diablo sound is you use an LFO instead of an envelope to modulate the cutoff, and you set the rate to, it varies between the different songs, but this song, you set the rate to 1/16. This is the shape of the LFO I got to sound the most like the original. I also have it modulating the detune of both oscillators. Oscillator A is just a square wave, oscillator B is just a triangle wave. In the effects tab, there's a little dimension expander and some chorus on there. But one interesting trick that I use to automate the rate of the LFO, because you'll notice that at the end of each bar, it slows down to an 1/8 note rate instead of a 16th, like right here. So you can see it slows down there. So instead of going into your DAW and automating it by hand every time you want the chords to do that, you can automate it right in Serum. So if you know that at the end of every 8 bars, you want that little section to go from 1/16th rate in the LFO to 1/8, then you open up a new LFO, make the rate 8 bars, have the value on 0 all the way up until the end where you want to change the rate. And then after that, go into the Matrix tab. In the source, you would click LFO2, because that's what you're using to change the rate. Bring the value down to -7 in this case. In the destination in this case, you want LFO1 rate. So make sure the arrow is just facing one way, one direction, and that's all you need to do to automate the rate in Serum. Another signature Don Diablo trick is to automate the pitch at the beginning of the chords. And how you do this is you open up another new LFO. For this track, make sure it's on envelope mode instead of trigger or off. So put it on envelope mode. So every time a chord plays, what this is going to do is bring the pitch up to the normal level. So how you do this is you go into the Matrix tab. As your source, you want to click LFO3, and then you want the pitch to be coming from down below the original pitch. So I have it set to -11 right now. You can mess with that based on what you think sounds good. And then for the destination there, you want to go to Global, Master Tune. Also on this one, you want to make sure the arrow is only facing one direction. So every time a chord plays, what this will do is it'll start the pitch lower than it should be, then it'll bring it up to the original pitch of the MIDI notes I'm playing after this little ramp. So you can see this in action right here. And that's a cool little trick just to make your synth sound more interesting and more futuristic like Don Diablo. Alright, for bass, here's what the bass sounds like by itself. This bass, I went in the basic shapes wavetable, and I put the wavetable position at this wave. I forget what this wave is called, but it's like a square wave that's moved over a little bit. I forget the name for it, but it doesn't matter. So this one, I also have the LFO modulating the cutoff of this low pass 18 filter, and it's shaped a little bit differently than the LFO for the synth wobble, and it's also set to 1/16th rate, just to keep the synth and the bass at the same rate. So this one, I'm not modulating the pitch with LFO3. LFO3 is not doing anything, but LFO2, I do have that same trick for at the end of the 8 bars to change the LFO1 rate from 1/16th to 1/8, so just it always matches the synth. I don't have any effects on here, but for processing, I use the CLA bass plugin to add some compression, some distortion, and some chorus on there. And here's the EQ I have. Underneath that bass, there's a sub layer. It's just a square sub, and it has the same LFO as the bass that's modulating the level of the sub. Alright, let's talk about these little synth fills in here. This one was hard to match the original exactly, but I got the basic idea down. It's a pretty cool, unique sound. So it's a square wave and a triangle wave. This LFO here is really controlling the whole sound. So it's modulating the detune of A and B, and also the filter cutoff. This LFO here is really 4/16 notes followed by an 1/8 note. But if you were to play that in your MIDI instead of automating it here, it wouldn't sound nearly as good. Also, this sound is falling in pitch the whole time. So if you go into the Matrix tab, I have LFO 4 modulating the pitch. So go in here and source, select LFO 4. I have it going down to -20. And in destination, you pick master tuner and make sure the arrow is only pointing one direction. So that way, when you start playing the sound, it starts falling in pitch right away. Super cool sound. Other synth fills is a bass layer with a synth. The synth is just 2 saw waves, and to give it a little detune and interestingness, I have this LFO modulating the fine tune here, and it's modulating about 14 cents on each one. And here's the envelope that's modulating the detune of A and B, and also the cutoff. The chord that's playing is just the key of the song, which is A. And you can hear when I play it by itself how this LFO is affecting the pitch to make it a little detune and make it sound cool. Let's talk about this bass fill now. So this bass fill is a square wave at -3 octaves, and it's using FM synthesis from B. B, the level's all the way down, and it's a sine wave. But it's still important that it's a sine wave, because using this FM synthesis will affect how this square wave over here sounds. So I've got this envelope that's modulating the FM level and the cutoff level of the sound. I'm also using the envelope to modulate the drive and the mix on this diode 1 distortion. It just gives the sound more grit and energy. So for processing, I added some compression, distortion, and chorus with the CLA bass plugin. I've got some slight EQ on there. And bit crusher is important on this sound as well. Got some bit crusher. And then after that, I compressed it even more with some OTT. Other than that, it's the drums and the white noise, which is pretty basic. So when you add all those things together, you get this. That's it for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to follow me on Instagram below to stay up to date with what I'm doing. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.